I think in definitely after the pandemic, we have seen a change in the working pattern, isn't it? And what's important for people, and how you have to become even more flexible than ever when you are a salon owner, because you've got to engage a team perhaps that is difficult to recruit, so you don't want to rock the boat too much. And you've also got to please everybody's, in a way, I don't want to say please, I'm not sure it's the right word, but you've got to accommodate everybody's wants and needs, and it can become quite heavy for the salon owner when you have to deal with everyone. And we've had an example not long ago of a salon owner who has real difficulty with the receptionist and understanding, trying to work around her going back to work, having children, and having the pressure of the family, thinking you don't need to work, but she wants to work. So you've got to go around the mindset of that receptionist who is obviously keen, but also making sure it's not disruptive for the business. So it's a huge act, juggle.
Yeah, juggling act.
Juggling act is the word.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a bit of a grey area, isn't it? Because obviously, you have to give equal opportunities to everybody, but it is one of the facts that a lot of women who work in our industry, and we're just talking our industry now, are mothers. Not everybody, but they are. And for me, it's about really understanding before they join you what their current position is. So, I mean, obviously this might happen whilst they're with you, but it's understanding what their position is, what their restrictions are. And obviously, yes, you have to be flexible with the work hours if it suits the business needs, and that's the thing. And things do change, their childcare might change. And I mean, I've come across it so many times when I had my clinic, but it's, you can only do so much as well, with support before it needs to be, you need to be careful about the business, but very supportive about the restrictions around having children and what that means. So your understanding of that before you take somebody on, and feeling comfortable with that, and being able to find a happy medium about the hours that are covered and what's realistic and what's not trying to pull too much out of that person if they can't do it, or, and revisiting it. So making sure, every month, is it working for you? Are you coping okay? I mean, it depends if there's issues or not. Some people have a really strong, solid, they have a support system around them. I mean, I did, and without that, I think it can be quite tricky. But I think it's, I think that, if we're thinking about a certain situation that we've come across ourselves, I think it's when that member of team is constantly sick, maybe because their baby's sick or their child's sick.
It's so difficult.
But
it's also to me is a lack of communication. So when you get that phone call as a salon owner saying, oh, I'm sick because my child is sick, or I can't do that because there's no one to pick up the child or whatever, it's, again, have we communicated between the two of us, and you've got an understanding or of the situation and what's going on, or is it constant last minute changes that just warrant you having a text message, and as a salon owner you just feel really stressed, rather than if you know in advance, look, next week I'm going to have an issue because my husband is away and I need to pick up the children. You can make concessions and look around it, but when it's that last minute change constantly, that's when it becomes a little bit of a battle. That's what I'm noticing a lot more, that you constantly having to juggle for someone's needs, and you're thinking, well, what about the business? Which is really tricky, because we are an industry predominantly of women, and ultimately how can you, and even men, I mean, we've got a few clients who have, paternity rights, and they have, they live far away. One in particular, few of the team live far away from London, so they've got also their restrictions. But I think, like you said, it's the onboarding, the recruitment, but and being very, very clear and specific. I think if it comes to you last minute, it just doesn't have a right connotation ultimately, is it?
But at the same time, playing devil's advocate as a parent, you can't predict whether your child, you're going to get a call from the school saying your child's sick, someone needs to come and get them. You know, where does that leave you? I think as well, it's about having, I mean, that's kind of a separate issue in itself. If it's happening every week, then you need to relook at what and reassess, you know, what hours is that person working? Does it suit them to work those hours, or do you need to look at, you know, could they come in the evenings rather than the daytimes, or, you know, and also it's about looking at how the team's set up so that when the hits the fan as such, if I can say that, you know, that you're confident that you've got a team that if that happens, you can cherry pick someone out, or you know, what's the kind of fallback on when things happen, because we don't always have that.
But I think the problem at the moment is because of the state of the recruitment. There is no fallback. No. That's the main issue. In essence, that we're seeing creeping up more and more. Whereas before, you could perhaps have more part-timers to kind of cover different hours, so instead of 2 full-time receptionists you'd have 4, so it'd be more flexibility, and some of them have children. So you can cope with the emergencies or the things that are occurring, you know, but you still got a business to run. I mean, I remember my daughters, when it was snowing really badly, I had to walk because there's no bus. We walked for a whole hour to get to school, and they're like, Mom, we just want to stay at home. We're not staying at home. So, you know, it's that kind of mindset as well. So is this recurrent and you're constantly having to cover up for that person?
Yeah. And also that, I mean, there's not one ideal answer to give, is there? But it's also remembering as well that it's not always just parents. You know, that person might be regularly sick or for their own reasons. So it's just understanding how you deal with that recurring issue, regardless of the reason behind it. You know, and how you deal with that, and how you then, obviously, you hold your return to work interview, meeting, whatever you want to call it. You're understanding why it's happening. Are there any ways in which you can support and make sure it doesn't happen again, hopefully? Keeping a track of when it happens. Is it every Monday? Whether it's because of children or not. You know, is there a flow to how it happens? Can you come to together? Can you talk through solutions? Asking them, how do you think I can support you, so that, you know, because obviously every time you're off last minute, it really does affect the business. It's very difficult to get it covered. I understand, but, you know, we need to try and work together to come up with a solution or a plan of how we can maybe move forward, and so that we're not facing this all the time.
I had a client a while ago who basically allowed her team to have a couple of hours to go and pick up the kids, put them back to the mum, you know, put them back to the mums, and then she would come back and have a couple of hours, and then the whole team was made of, you know, kind of scattered, I guess, hours, but it really worked for her. And it worked for them and the business that she had, and it was great, you know, and I think everyone respected that even more perhaps. But again, is you know, when I was saying to her, wow, that can be challenging in terms of, I guess, the rota or the setup, she said, yes, but, you know, because I couldn't find anyone, I kind of, you know, started making concessions around everyone else's life. And I'm finding that everyone respects it even more because they're having that freedom of being able to go and pick up the children from school, put them at their mum's or whatever, and not having the stress of wondering who and what's gonna happen. And I thought that was brilliant, but it's not always feasible. So it does go back to, you know, what is your setup, what is your structure, what do you allow in some respect in terms of the rota?
What's the flexibility allowance for the job role that you're doing, sort of thing.
We've got to be more and more flexible. That is a hard situation. But we've come across quite a few staff members who have had a child and then suddenly want to come back to work, but actually they have got the pressure of the family kind of, or whether it's a husband or boyfriend or whatever, but you should be looking after the child. Why do you need to go back to work? And they come back to this list of, well, I want 9 till 2.
Yeah.
Or 9:30 after
and I can only do every other Wednesday, and I can only do
can't
this
do
and that,
Saturday.
Yeah. Regardless of what the situation is, it's monitoring. And because you're not going to stop last minute things, you just, there's not an answer to that, really. Unfortunately, there's not an answer. You can't stop. But if it's a continuous thing that's happening all of the time, is it for that reason, or actually is it something else? And you've got to dig a little deeper. You've got to be able to have these open and honest conversations with your staff as well, and really understand what's happening. And I might even be saying, look, do you think this is right for you? Is there a
way we can work around it? Or...
because I think it's just about having those open discussions rather than getting frustrated.
For sure, but that's why the individual meetings are really important. Yeah. I remember in my Clarence days, so that you're talking quite a while ago, we had it was a behind a counter in a big department store, and the department manager was getting frustrated because this particular person was constantly late, and the manager as well, because she got the pressure from the department manager, etc. So when I had an individual meeting, which no one had kind of bothered doing, with this particular person, she said, well, I don't have anyone to bring my child to school, so sometimes I'm having to leave him with people at the school gates. Sometimes I don't even know those people, and sometimes there's no one, so I can't predict. And I was like, oh my God, what an awful situation to feel as a mother, that you've got to leave your child. Fingers crossed, everything's going to be okay, and then you've got the pressure of being late, and really you're not that kind of person, so it's beyond your understanding. So I said, okay, let me talk to the managers and the department managers, and we ended up for her to come in at 9:30 instead of 9, and she only got half an hour lunch instead of an hour. She was happy as anything. She managed to kind of be more committed than everyone, because she had the chance of being able to deliver what she could deliver in that time. So we've got to be more flexible than ever. I think that's what I'm taking from it. But the biggest difficulty is because a lot of it is we're accepting a lot of situations because we're so desperate for staff. Goes back to budget, goes back to what do you want to do and how can you grow, because if you keep being in that constant staff holding on to your business as such, then you're never going to grow, really, are you?
No. And it's sometimes being brave in decision making as well, isn't it? When again I've been there where I've hung on to staff members that I know it isn't right. But because you're, recruitment's never been easy. No. But at the moment it seems to be the toughest it's ever been. So I think it's it comes down to kind of being brave with your decision making as well, isn't it? And not. Because ultimately having someone in the business that doesn't serve the business is worse than having no one at all. But I feel like we're just hanging on to them because we're worried about. But do you know what? Every time in the 13 years I had the clinic, every time I lost someone, I'd be like, my heart would sink into my stomach, and I'd think, oh my God, what am I going to do? The business is over. And, over time I learned that wasn't the case, actually. And every time you kind of get stronger in your resolve that actually I'm still here. And it doesn't. But when it first starts to happen, you're so worried. But actually, somehow it just comes together. You've got a plan, you're doing continuous recruiting, even though it's difficult, but you're always looking. And the team kind of resets somehow. It rebalances, and then you move on. So, it's a challenge for sure.
I think ultimately what we're learning really with this conversation is not real answers to the issue.
No.
Because of the difficulty of the recruitment, because obviously predominantly you want to make sure that everyone's happy, and you want to kind of, if someone's got a skill, they shouldn't be discriminated upon if they have a child or they have certain difficulties within the kind of arrangements, etc. But the biggest thing is, as a business owner, if you've got that solution finding mindset, great, and that's what you've got to constantly work on, communication, solution finding, etc. But if you keep, I'm just thinking of a client who's basically saying, well, this particular manager has children, she thought it'd be a great idea for her to do 10 Monday to Friday, 10 till 2:30.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I want to do Monday to Friday, 10 to 3:30 is not suiting me. Yeah. Then stick to that decision.
Yeah.
Stop making arrangement for everyone else that ultimately is not serving you, and that's the biggest key.
Well, there's a difference between flexibility and then getting it right for the business, like you said. So if that role needs that person to be there for this amount of time, then unfortunately whoever comes into that role has to be able to commit to that.
Yeah.
And if they can't, then maybe there's another role in the business that would really suit them, like social media, because that can be done anytime if that suits them and you. But maybe it's just that role in particular isn't right for that person.
So all you have to do now is press the subscribe button and join us every week for an Insight Chat.
And if you have any burning questions that we haven't yet answered, then just pop in the comments below or send us an email and we can include them in one of our weekly chats.
And also we have started this amazing community of like-minded salon owners to join us on a monthly basis with our Insight Chat subscription.
Yeah, on that chat as well, you'll also get access to lots of free downloads and content that can really support you in your business.
And thank you so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.